Yeah.
No way.
UCLan in central Lancashire, they recently opened a medical school. You know, a proper one for doctors, and you know, just like in competition with some of the other main universities that do that. And they went out and spent an awful lot of money getting top people from the health world in to actually do the lecturing, and it's made a huge difference. The reputation for that area now has jumped basically in the last few years. Anyway, I digress. Professionalism is an issue which is joined. It is dual professionalism, if you like, because obviously there are differences in the way you approach things as a teacher than you do as in another industry. So, again, it's explain ways in which those professional values influence your own practice in areas of specialism. One of the areas that I was in when I was in industry was quality control, which led me from assessment into IQA, which is, again, it's the same area. It's looking at doing things properly, yeah, where you have values within yourself that you display every time you stand out in front of a group, yeah? And those professional values enhance what you do, yeah? They don't detract from it whatsoever, which was the impression I was getting when I first moved into the industry nearly 30 years ago. So that is the big difference between the two. So it's looking at those, and I think if we bring the other sheet up, it actually goes over that as well. Yeah. Oh, we don't need to go through the let's get a bit to the bits. So here we are. Yeah. Professionalism, autonomy, codes of conduct, roles and responsibilities, concept of leadership, what national bodies stand for, and national professional standards, and professional recognition, and people with higher qualifications. That's not to say that people with higher qualifications are necessarily more professional than people with lesser qualifications. Well, that's something I firmly believe anyway, because I've met both. I've met people with very high qualifications who have an extreme sense of professionalism, and some that don't. You know, this all boils down to personality as much as anything else. But dual professionalism, specialist area plus specialist teaching, these are where people like ourselves have come from one area into teaching by whatever means, and it's looking at how we have actually arrived there. So we're looking at professional bodies. Institute for Learning, I'm not sure that's still there, is it?
No.
Is it still there?
I think it might be, you know.
Yeah, the IFL was brought in, again, 10, 12, 15 years ago. And it was actually not looked well upon by a lot of teachers because it was really leaned on the professionalism sort of thing. And if you don't do it, got quite authoritarian.
Yeah.
And I think they were either told to quieten it down a bit or something, but the relationship did change over a period of time. Looking at qualified teacher, learning and skills status, and national professional standards. So it's defined the context of professionalism and dual professionalism in education and training. There is some stuff on the VLE for you to have a look at on that. I'll just whiz that either way. Oops, and that. We've got piece on professionalism and dual professionalism. There's a recording for Unit 4, LO4 and 5, which is later on. An introduction to wider professional practice. There's I'm not going to, you can go into this afterwards yourself, but there is a PowerPoint on LO1 that you might find useful if you're going through that as well. And an ebook on the reflective teaching in further and adult education. A lot of information in those will help towards putting these LOs together. Coming back to that. So again, it then moves on rather, and it asks to this expands, I should say, to looking at ways in which social, political, and economic factors have influenced educational policy. Whether you think they have or whether you don't think they have is equally acceptable here. Political factors influence educational policy quite, how shall I say, quite strongly. Whether you think that's for good or bad, it depends on how it's actually worked out for you. I've had instances where political interference, if you like, in certain areas has caused problems. The most recent one, of course, was the apprenticeship programs that something like 3 years ago now, they decided to bring a levy in for people that wanted to take on an apprentice. And a group of us at a meeting there said it was going to kill the apprenticeship scheme. And they all poo-pooed it, and they went ahead with it. And of course, it killed the apprenticeship scheme. They're now actually looking at delivering that differently now. And whether the levy will stay or go, I personally think it's going to go. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see on that. So look at current educational policies and on curriculum and practice in your own area. So again, that's coming back to what you do. So you can write about that. And if there are any factors, of course, which affect what you do, then one of the, I think it was Adele that brought this up a few weeks ago when she just started to have a look at 4. And she said a lot of the cuts in educational budgets meant a difference. She goes into schools to deliver specific music it is actually as well. She teaches music, but to special students with special educational needs and that sort of thing. And some of the cuts have affected the number of schools she's actually going into. So that's an area that is, there's no wrong answers here. It's about your impressions of this and what you think about it. So look what they have to say. 2.1, yeah. Yeah, raising social factors is raising standards, promoting widening participation. Well, we always call it the NEET group. They call it the NEETs group, which is not in education or training. So it's looking at engaging underrepresented groups, addressing differences in performance between minority groups, and engaging and identifying community composition and needs, responding to the impact of migration and immigration, and supporting local initiatives. Some of the factors, the social factors on here, have been things like infrastructure has not been big enough to support a particular migration or immigration in a specific area. Overall, the system may have been able to cope, but when it gets concentrated into a smaller area, then it can make support services extremely difficult. So again, it gives you some ideas on political factors and economic factors, reflecting local employment needs, identifying local and regional skills gaps. One of the things that that adult education budget I was just talking about before with the apprenticeship scheme is it was all sort of administered from London. Now, each devolved area is going to get some of this funding to determine what they need from it, rather than be dictated to from London. So the local needs are going to be able to be, all the funding is going to go to what the local areas need, rather than a national sort of experience, that this widening participation. Yes, that will probably be an issue with local funding, but maybe not as high priority in some areas than in others. Yeah.
Mm.
In economic practice, it's reflecting on local employment needs, identifying, responding and promoting employment opportunities, partnerships and collaboration, impact of globalisation on business needs, and responding to an evolving and priority sectors, changing workforce demographics, encouraging, it goes on, yeah, encouraging investment in areas. A lot of local councils started to work with the what they call chambers of commerce, yeah, and working together rather than two separate initiatives, and that has made a big difference, because it may be that a business that's a member of the chamber needs information on apprenticeships or information on training and what's available, and the local authority has training providers who have peripatetic assessors that go out into the workplace who can go down and give them that information, so they can get firsthand exactly what's involved, any costs involved, what they need to do, all of the things that need to be arranged, sort of become a one-stop shop in local areas rather than different agencies working in different manners.
So could I use that, like, in reference to, say, in some of the schools that I work in, because there's a lot of children with the English as an additional language, and we put that on our SEN register. Yeah. And then we create these hubs, like community hubs, where we get parents to come, so we can, like, 1 hour a week, and we teach them English. The council will outsource a teacher to teach them English, so that they can be on the same level as their children. Yeah, that's happening up here as well. Funny enough, we've one of my responsibilities is taking over as functional skills, and that's getting people up to maths and English at level 2. And a lot of the I've got like a high number of Asian women that's been coming in, and they're saying that the children teaching them at home. They want to come in and pick up and sort of broaden the language skills, because many of them have got a spoken language pretty good. You know, they've been here for a year, and it's not, you know, brilliant, but it's well done enough. But the reading and writing skills are, you know, way behind that, and those are the things that build up. So yeah, I agree. There are different needs in some areas, but some like that probably go right across the country, because I think this is something new that they're starting to integrate into a lot of schools, because they're having this influx of where people that only know each other, they'll stay with each other, so they're not growing out of their box, they're not learning the English language, they're not learning to read it, or we're kind of forcing it on them so that they can help their children, you know?
Yeah, the ones I've spoken to, they don't feel they're being forced to do it, not sort of the pressure's on from the family as much as anything else, to actually improve those skills so that they can fully integrate with where they are. So all those things can be discussed if you've got specifics on there. Looking at the first bit is a sort of explain ways in which social factors influence educational policy, which is a sort of general thing. And the next bit is analyse the impact of current educational policies on curriculum practice in your own area. So that's what's happened with curriculum, creating curriculum framework, programmes of study, raising school age. Just as you mentioned, then programmes of study will be in school, but also they're broadening those or widening them out now. Promoting literacy and numeracy, promoting vocational qualifications, learning for employment and wider skills. The initiatives come and go nationally. Some of them are a good idea, some of them are perhaps less of a good idea. Just before
isn't it?
Sorry?
There's lots of trial and error that goes on with
sometimes you've got to look at what the cost is of something against what you've got to get out of it. And they put it's about 10 or 11 years ago now, an initiative came out to actually get people that had no qualifications at all, who were actually in a job and working, to look at if they could gain a level 2 qualification at least in the area of work where they were. And that was I think it was called Train to Gain, some catchphrase like that from the government. And I got quite heavily involved in that, in running that and getting people, sort of older people, to see that the value of having that qualification could make the difference between them getting another job and not getting another job if their job was to go. And in fact, one company, we took 14 on, and there was about another dozen who were umming and ahhing. And then about 3 weeks into the programme, the company announced there were big cutbacks and they may be closing down, and everybody jumped on straight away to get the qualification before they finished. So yeah, there are good initiatives that work and are valuable, but again, cost is usually or cost benefit is usually an issue all the way across there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those two. 1.1, 1.2, 2.1, 2.2 are only two assessment criteria, but they're quite big ones, yeah? They're quite big subjects. So when you put, when you've completed 1 up to 2.2, yeah? Send me the work across and I'll send you some feedback, yeah? You okay with that, Ben?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, because what I'll do, I'll pick up anything that is sort of going off course a little bit and be able to bring it back on. And then when you follow on with the rest of it, because tonight what I want to do is just have a quick look at the rest of the unit. I don't want to dwell on it. I just want to go through the learning objectives to make sure you've got no issues with anything as we work through it, yeah?
Yeah.
So 3.1 is looking at the roles of stakeholders and external bodies in educational training. Deepa, you just mentioned there about bringing parents in and things like that. They then become stakeholders themselves. And in some areas, parents are invited in, not just in mainstream school education, but in further education as well. Sometimes parents are brought in, especially on apprentice schemes and things like that. Because there's still this stigma to a certain extent to apprenticeship schemes. Oh, they're just working the kids and not paying them very much. Or that's a lot of parents get that into their head. But when they see exactly what's going on and what they're going to get out of it, and that there is like a vocationally related qualification alongside of the actual skills, they then seem to say, oh, no, it was like that, yeah. But again, it's getting stakeholders in and making sure people get information, yeah. So looking at external bodies, so parents, students, awarding organisations, employers, further or higher education providers and training providers. There's not a huge difference between higher education providers and training providers now. Because we deliver functional skills, as well as higher level education, we now become a cross between an higher education provider and a training provider. So the roles, etc., building expertise, specialist staff, physical and human resources. As I say, sometimes, again, looking at costs, they can't afford to bring in. Well, some of the schools that Adele works in anyway can't afford to bring in or pay a full-time music teacher because they haven't got sufficient, numbers to actually do it. So they'll bring a specialist in to deliver specific lessons during the week, probably 2 or 3 days a week. And that's one way of looking at making sure they've got a full curriculum. They can provide the things, but doing it in a different way. Again, IT support, marketing, sponsorship or grants, finance, work experience and progression. One of the big SEN colleges just south of Manchester, I've just taken a group, they've just completed actually, just after Christmas. They finished the full qualification. And they have parents, of course, but they also have employers that take them, take the kids, they've got somebody with them, obviously, and they give them jobs to do, and they learn what it's like to be at work, which is probably the first time that's happened for them because of their educational needs. But yeah, that widening out of the number of stakeholders involved in education makes quite a difference. So it looks at all those things. Where's it gone? Yeah, and it's the impact of the accountability to those stakeholders. It can have a big, to the teacher, outcomes then become an issue, where perhaps they didn't have before, but the pressure to be accountable from the different stakeholders can put added pressure onto the way the curriculum is delivered. So it's again explain how being accountable to stakeholders and external bodies impacts on organisations in education and training. So impact of accountability, meeting targets, qualified and experienced staff, policies and procedures, clarity of reporting. All those things are just really mind maps for you to have a look at, to look at those subjects. And if you want to, there's plenty of information on the net actually in these different things. Awarding organisations have become accountable themselves now. They have to meet certain standards, or the material that is in their qualifications have to meet a particular standard now, and they've got to maintain that. One of the things that came in recently was that they were being pushed into providing grading, which is something that a lot of providers didn't do. You had a pass, or you had a pass, or you didn't. It's as simple as that. Now they're offering qualifications with the merit and distinction not in every section, but in certain sections of the qualification. You'll be offered, if you do this additional work, then you'll be able to achieve a merit. If you do this additional work, on top of that, you'll then get a distinction. Now, I'm rather ambivalent about it. I come from the sort of MBQ side, so you either achieve it or you don't. It's as simple as that. There can be no grey areas. Certainly in something like maintenance engineering, would you want somebody that has just about passed, or would you want somebody that's got a distinction working on your equipment? Yeah.
Especially the only exception would be if it was like a creative industry. Because
that's different. Yeah, you a different
but they
thing.
still achieved like all of the skills that they need to be able to do something.
Yeah.
But you just might not like what they've done. Whereas you can't deny if the car is working or not.
That's just subjective. Yeah. Yeah. Or if you go around the corner and the car goes straight on. Yeah. It's like who tested the electrics? Bang. Again, on this one borders on another unit further on. This is explain why it's important to work in partnership with employers and other stakeholders in education and training. This is becoming more relevant today as well, as more people get involved. You've got now companies getting involved with schools as well, haven't you? Just quite what the import of that is, I'm not sure. I'm not read up much on that. I'm just unaware of it, that's all. So yeah, it's partnerships mainly with employers, ensuring currency and validity to qualifications, workplace assessment, opportunities for sharing resources, liaising to meet student needs, assessment and requirements, minimising risks, quality assuring programs and progression opportunities. Most of the qualifications that we deliver at the higher level, when they get to level 7 with us, they can then, there are a selection of universities they can then move straight into to do a top-up and get the full degree. one of the things that came out of this qualification is that it's been stated at a level 5, but because I'm used to reading material off the different levels, this is certainly borders on level 6. It's almost a full bachelor's degree, this qualification. If you look at the amount of work there is in it, it's 9 units, and they're quite big units. Some of them are not, but most of them are quite large units. (3.4) Analyse the impact of being accountable to stakeholders and external bodies on curriculum design and delivery and assessment in your own area of specialism. So where that affects or impinges any of the things you've discussed earlier, impinge on what you do and how that do it. You just need that an analysis of how that works. Again, the others are just the explain and explain. The last bit is and analyse what all that does to you as a teacher, yeah, or has the potential to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Now this one again is a bit more general. It's looking at explaining the key aspects of policies, codes of practice and guidelines in an organisation. So you really need to look at what the QA is within where you're working at the moment, yeah. What the policy manual is, what the policies and procedures are, what the responses are to the new common inspection framework, and the identified roles and responsibilities, observations of teaching, assessment policies, learner support provision, sharing and supporting best practice, and integrated approaches and staff satisfaction. All of these have to be measured in some way and somehow recorded. And a lot of organisations now have put particular documents out to find out what staff satisfaction's like, to get feedback from people on what they think within the common inspection framework. Managers are starting to put out to staff, when you do a self-assessment report before an inspection happens, they're getting staff involved in the SAR now rather than just doing it from a management point of view. So this is all about how an organisation works and how it's managed, if you like, yeah. I'm working with a school in London that's got a bad report from Ofsted, and we're putting a plan together to turn that round in the next 6 months. And it's all about, in some instances, the inspection can be quite subjective, and they are putting things in place now which allow you to come back on that rather than just say, well, that's your inspection report.
Yeah, they give you like a certain amount of time to fix it up, and then you go back and reassess it, basically, don't you?
Well, yeah, you can do that, but what needs to happen in any instance like that is that you've got to have basically a management meeting and say, where do we want to go from here? And then say, right, well, how are we going to get there? And yeah. it may mean bringing people like me in to have a look at what they've done and say, well, yeah, what about this and what about that? Have you done this? What have we got that? How do you record this? Where do you store that? How do you look at this? Asking management questions, really, of how they're doing something. It makes them think, oh, hang on. In fact, I was in one in Leeds that was absolutely horrendously paper-based when most of it should have been electronically based. And they just needed to get somebody in to set that up. And once they got that done, then they could never find anything. It was just chaos. The management of it was chaos. But anyway, they're on the mend as well now. So it's looking at the key aspects of policies, codes and practice, understanding the organisational contacts of educational training, and ostensibly the management of it, yeah. Again, analysing the impact of those requirements and expectations on curriculum practice in your own area, yeah. And 5.1, analyse the quality improvement and quality assurance arrangements in your own organisation. So any organisation that you work with or are working in, even if it's temporarily or whatever, it's just having a look at their policies and what they involve. Yeah. One of the things that a lot of organisations don't do very well is quality assurance, and that is having standardisation meetings on a fairly regular basis that make sure the assessors are fairly across the board. One of the issues is that assessors sometimes are brought in by organisations. They don't actually work for them, they just contract to them, and they give them a lot of portfolios to promote, and then they send them in. Somebody else looks at them as far as quality is concerned and says, oh, this is useless. And the guy's gone, he's off somewhere else, and then they've got to try and unpick that and resort it all out. So having proper codes of practice and proper, I mean, one of the things they do, you see, is once right, I've got 6 portfolios, you owe me so much money, there's my invoice, get your money and you go. Now, one of the things I've advised companies to do, you don't pay any money out until you've got a completed portfolio, not one that's just been sent in. It needs to have been assessed properly, you need to have the assessment records, and it needs to be accurate before you can say, yeah, that's fine. So having those procedures in place and making sure they're there, it really needs you to look at your organisational ones and what they've got, and then you can put there what you think of them.
So is that like when they do the staff questionnaires and they ask for your response?
Sorry, again?
You know when they do staff questionnaires?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by analysing the quality improvement?
No. Well, that's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it's part of the policy for getting that information. But what I'm saying is, you need to look at the quality manual, if you like, within the organisation that you work with, or an organisation that you work for.
So would that be like at school they focus on teaching and learning?
You will have somebody in a school that is responsible for basically managing the quality of the programs, and that person is the person you need to contact. Really, they're the best person.
The literacy phase leader or the numeracy phase leader or something like that.
Yeah, and they will tell you what their policies are, what they've got in place to actually fulfil the necessary requirements for inspection, common inspection framework. There's certain things you have to have in place, yeah, and it's no good going for an inspection without them because you'll just get turned down. So, yeah.
Would that also be like in accordance to the national curriculum as well? That's what they'll be referring to, what needs to be taught at the certain ages, isn't it?
Not necessarily what is taught. This is looking at how it is taught and what is the quality of it, yeah?
Yeah.
And what policies and procedures they've got in place to make sure that happens, yeah?
Yeah.
Self-assessment, informal sessions, explain the functions of self-assessment and self-evaluation in the quality cycle. And that is part of what, before you get inspected, an organisation has to do an SAR and send it to them before the inspection takes place. And that's an organisation saying, yeah, this is where we are, yeah? There'll be good bits in there and bad bits in there. But this is our SAR, self-assessment report. So you need to evaluate a learning programme with learner surveys, focus groups, formal and informal and informal learner feedback, team reviews, early reviews, checking meeting expectations, on programme to ensure satisfaction. All those things, the documents that are collected, the ones like you just mentioned, they'll do staff surveys, sometimes they'll do student surveys as well. to actually document what they've done about it, yeah? And then within your organisation, quality maintenance of your own organisation, identify any areas for improvement. Well, the easiest thing to do that is if you've got, excuse me, if you're in an organisation, try and get a hold of the latest SAR. Yeah, that will tell you exactly what's good, what isn't good, and you can then from that you can identify the areas for improvement. So that makes that fairly straight. In fact, it says that down here. Student progression data, self-assessment report. That is the major thing in that tells you exactly where you're up to, basically, or it should do.
So would that be a school improvement plan?
Well,
is that what an SAR is?
No, an SAR is saying we've checked everything. We're good at this. We're not too good at that. That's okay, but could improve. This is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's looking at all the different things that are done within the organisation and saying what they are. It's not a plan. It's a report. It's saying exactly where you are.
It's like a reflection on the year that you've had.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right, Ben. It is a reflection of where we are. Yeah. That will then trigger a number of things. If you've got an inspection due, as a manager, if you've got major issues within the SAR, I would be contacting the inspection regime and asking for some more time because on the SAR you've found issues that you need to put in place. Usually they will then say, oh, that's fine. You'll get a new date or whatever. But it's then, after you've done the SAR, that's when you can put an improvement plan together. Yeah? Because from the SAR, you'll then say, yeah, well, we need to do that. That needs to be done. That's not in place. That's not in place. And then once you've done that, you've got the plan out. And the people involved then in the different sections who've got things to do will have to get those sorted out. I think it was I think it was December. I put one into the company down in London. They've got an improvement plan they're working towards now. So, and then that was it basically. Any areas for improvement, plan any changes in delivery approaches, new delivery techniques, development of resources, use of new technologies or online resources, and more flexible approaches to improve access to programme and opportunities for staff development, working with stakeholders. All those things, again, just amplification, thoughts about areas that you could look at. So anyway, I'm not going to go too deep there. I'm just giving you a read through there. What I need you to do is first come back to where we were and go back to nearly there. 1.1.2, 2.1, 2.2, and focus on those and get those complete. And once you've done your first draft on there, send them through. It's working, by the way, now. You don't need to send them straight through to my email now. You send them through to learnerwork@ukversity.co.uk. Those actually get forwarded straight to me now. And usually, if I've not got too high a load on of IQA, I'll respond as soon as I can on those, send you some stuff back. In the meantime, of course, if you've got any specific questions that you're not sure about, either email me or text me. You've got my phone number. Just send a text if you've got an issue, and I'll hopefully be able to help. Have we got any further questions this evening?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
No, I'm all right. No.
Okay, Ben.
Yeah, the
Right,
first
well, can I
one
leave that with you?
fine.
Yeah?
Sorry?
Can I leave that with you then, no?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
If we work through it this way, this is the intention to run through on this. I've been learning as I've been delivering different ones to different groups. One of the ones that I've mentioned to Deepa before was to do Unit 3 first. That's worked.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm tackling now.
Yeah. That has worked because it'll cross-reference into the others. Ones that you've already done, actually, but it will cross-reference into the other. Also, putting the two first learning objectives together first and then sending them in for a formative assessment. That is working really well now, because then when the rest of it comes in, it's usually okay. I'll just, mind
Do you mean the first two in Unit 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
First two learning objectives in Unit 4, and then send those two. I'll give you some feedback on those, and it'll either, yeah, that's fine, carry on as you are, or there's a couple of points here, you just need to do this, this and this. And that then sets you on the trend for what you need to do. As I've said, the stuff on the VLE, anything that's not there, I mean, I use Google quite a lot myself, but also come back to me if you've got a specific issue that you're not sure about or you need some further information on.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, great.
Right, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for attending, and I
Bye.
will see you again next week. Bye now.
Cheers, Phil. Nice to meet you, Peter. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.